Yes.
You know, everyone's talking about economy and healthcare. How come we're not talking about war anymore?
Well, that's right. We're not, and we've got two of them going on still.
Yeah.
We've still got all the troops in Iraq dealing with that situation, and we've got actually a buildup in Afghanistan, which is a very, very difficult situation. It's just, you know, what they talk about ultimately is what these media folks want to talk about. And the healthcare thing, again, has gotten people so exercised. I think the healthcare thing has been the main topic largely because it affects everybody. Every single person is affected, and it's also almost a quarter of the nation's GDP. So a whole lot of the business sector is affected by healthcare. Oddly enough, and this is one of the problems, I think, with the war effort, not enough of the country is affected by the wars. And I think we'd be better off if more people had to sacrifice. You know, we would have a better sense of the fact that we were even in wars. Unless you have a family member in the military, you really don't see a whole lot of what really is going on. It's almost hidden from you. It's like the country isn't really at war. You've just got this professional army over here that you've sent, and it's at war. And it shouldn't be that way. The whole country ought to be bought in, which is, I just think that's important for the country to be bought in if we ever do anything like that. And from my point of view, the quicker we get the kids home, the better. Yes, sir.
Taxation. Can you tell us, are we going to wait until this year is out and pick up the income tax as it automatically be, or are we going to change it this year? And what about estate taxation?
Well, let me start with the estate tax. There has been an effort in the past while to get rid of the estate tax altogether, and that didn't get to anywhere. We actually passed a measure in the House this year which put the levels up to 3.5 million and 7 million as exempted, and that's where I think the thing ultimately will go. Now, you know, it gets to a bit of a crisis point if we don't get it done before the year's out. So I hope that something does happen with that, and I know that there are a lot of people who are concerned about it, and I think they will get to it. What was the other?
Income tax.
Income tax. What? I don't know that there's.
Well, if you do nothing, it'll pick up next year as well. And I wonder if there's a plan to adjust it before next year.
Well, I know that they're talking about that. The Ways and Means members, the people on that committee, are chiefly responsible for that. I try to avoid learning as much as I can, avoid learning more about the tax system as I can, because I'm so confused by the whole thing. And it changes so often. But you know, I wish they would simplify the thing in general so that we could all understand it. I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. I don't know, to tell you the truth, what they're doing on the income tax situation. I do believe that the estate tax will be dealt with before the year's out. I would assume that if something is changing on the income tax right away, they'll probably want to deal with that too. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I was in your office in Washington, D.C. in November, and I noticed a book on your shelf called Hot, Flat, and Crowded. And I wanted to know how much that book has influenced your policy on coal and energy production. I know you voted cap and trade as the big name bill that has to do with our energy production, but the Clean Water Act, you voted for a series of those, and the last one that you voted for is being used right now by the EPA to virtually shut down surface mining. The regulations are so stringent on conductivity, et cetera, in water.
Not the bill that I voted on. It's not being used.
According to the Wall Street Journal, it is.
It didn't pass.
According to the Wall Street Journal, you voted for a series of them, and I don't know exactly which one, but according to the Wall Street Journal, that's what the EPA is using. But you're on record as far back on KET as in 2006 talking about that you were flirting with the idea then of completely shutting down surface mining. You're big on jobs not moving over to India or China. I want to know how a Kentucky coal miner job can be moved out of country, so why can't we have them? The coal industry is the bedrock of our energy, and our energy is the bedrock of our business. It doesn't matter what business you're in. That energy, steady energy, reliable energy, and cheap energy. And your voting record is to clamp down on that through cap and trade, through the Clean Water Acts, through some of the Clean Air Acts, and the carbon dioxide entrapment, or I can't think of the word, but having to capture it. The whole carbon dioxide thing is just been shown over and over that the science that that's based on is so iffy. And unless that is absolutely rock solid science, why do we have to shut down our entire economy on it? And go back to Hot, Flat, and Crowded. After I saw that on your bookshelf, I looked at it, and that whole book, the bedrock of it is that you regulate and make the coals, the fuels from hell, as it referred to coal and oil, fuels that come out of the ground are called fuels from hell. You regulate those and tax those until they are so expensive that people can no longer use them, and then you were forced into the new clean green energy that you talk a lot about. And you say that those clean green jobs are ones that cannot be transferred out of our country. But coal jobs can be kept here because coal provides cheap energy that makes us more competitive in the international marketplace, which you say you want. So why are you taking away the coal? Why are you continually voting against it?
Well, all of this, as you know, the energy issue is a very complicated issue, and it's got a lot of different aspects to it. I do believe in having a good environment, and what I've got to do is ultimately I've got to make a decision. As the person who casts a vote, I've got to make a decision on the science, for instance, and my understanding of the science differs just a little bit from what was just said. My understanding of the science is that we do have a problem with greenhouse gases in the world. International opinion in general feels that way. Much of corporate America actually feels that way. And I've got to make a decision about what science I follow. You try to make decisions on any subject based on the very best evidence that you can have. I, of course, am not a scientist myself, so I have to rely on what the people who are expert in a particular subject say. The people who are expert in this subject say that we do have a problem, that it is urgent that we address the problem. I'm not the only one who feels this way. The majority, by far the majority of the opinion, not only in the country, but in the entire world feels this way. And what we've got is we have, staring us right in the face, we have a determination that has got to, that is going to be made. Whether we make it or somebody else makes it for us, it's going to be made. I liken it to a freight train coming down the track. It's coming our way, and we're going to have to deal with it. So what we've got to do, and what I tried to do in the cap and trade bill, among others, is get things in there that will actually help us make transitions in the best way possible that will mitigate the impact on our state to the extent that we can mitigate it. And we need to try to mitigate that effect on our Commonwealth. There's no doubt that energy is important and that it's absolutely important that we have cheap energy. And we're trying, and I'm trying, to the best of my ability, to see that we get cheap energy. We had $60 billion of mitigation put into that bill for coal. $60 billion. And if the EPA does it, and that's the thing that we're looking at, and the concern I think that a lot of people around here has, is that the EPA will do it by fiat and we won't be able to mitigate it and allow the folks in Kentucky to make the transition. So I am concerned deeply about the impact on jobs. I think we need to move to a green economy, as green as we can get. I think that's a plus, not a minus. I believe that we ought to be environmentally conscious, we ought to be environmentally sound, and that it's good for the health and welfare of our communities if we go in that direction. And I make no apologies about being interested in trying to preserve and influence our environment in a favorable way. I think that's what good stewardship's about. Yes, sir.
Just listening to all that, I think, I've watched a lot of the environmental stuff, and I'm for a lot of that kind of stuff. The problem is that a lot of the green jobs are 30 years into the future, 40, 60 years into the future, and a lot of the technologies they're talking about. And I understand, I was in manufacturing for 25 years, and I understand you've got to go through a process to figure out how you're going to make them work and all that. And then you also said something about, I'm going to jump topics here a little bit, you also said something about the Fox News and all the internet news and all this stuff being somehow bad for the news, that capitalism was somehow bad for the news business, which implies ABC, NBC, CBS are not in it for the money somehow.
I think it's just changed a lot.
Okay, yeah, you're right. It has changed a lot, and it wouldn't have changed based on capitalism unless they were providing something that wasn't being provided before. But then also, I guess the biggest thing to me in hearing you speak is you saying something about how the government's going to solve some things, and that's the thing that scares me the most, is that government somehow is going to solve things. There's a poster out there on the internet that says something about, has the Capitol building, and it says something like, if you don't like what we're doing or something, wait until you see our solutions. I mean, and the thing is Washington, you mentioned several times that I'm not an expert on tax policy, I'm not an expert on, but you're still the guy making the decision, and that worries me.
Well, I'm one of many.
But you got to pick your news too, and you just said that you've got to make a decision on what the science is you're going to pay attention to, and that most of the world is somehow on this greenhouse gas kick. And part of that is that the news media has put that out, and I mean, my kids hear it every day. They're thinking, yeah, that's great. They must be right. They're in the news. But there's an awful lot of scientists, real credible scientists, that don't believe any of that. That the biggest greenhouse gas there is, if we want to call it greenhouse gas, is water vapor. When is Congress going to put something on? I'm waiting for EPA to say we're regulating water vapor.
Well, again, any decision that I make or anybody else makes has to be based on evidence.
That's right.
And you have to get the evidence from somewhere. You have to do that. You don't have any choice but to do that. And I don't care what business you're in, or whether you're connected with the government, or whether you're connected in making decisions in private industry. You still have to make those decisions, and the decisions that you make are based on the very best evidence that you can find. That's all I am saying when I say that. I'm trying to find the best evidence that I can find.